Harriet, Esme and Martha were inseparable friends since their school days. Such lifelong friendships are rare, but theirs was one of those exceptional cases where a bond formed in the first grade endured for a lifetime. Esme and Martha were particularly fortunate. Their parents, who were also companions, had started a successful automotive service business that soon began to yield a substantial income. The girls grew up and enrolled in technical college. Harriet's life, however, took a different turn. After a tragic accident, she was left an orphan and was raised by her uncle. Like her friends, Harriet dreamed of attending college after school and was accepted into a medical college, albeit on a paid basis. Her uncle's family was not wealthy, and no one was willing to support her education. So after 6 months of studying, he said to her, "We barely make ends meet ourselves. You need to start working and contributing to the family." With a heavy heart, Harriet left her studies and found a job as a waitress in a local diner. The work was exhausting, and despite her youth, she often felt worn out. "At least you have a stable income now," her uncle's wife would console her. "Yes, but I'm so tired," Harriet would reply, "and some customers can be quite rude." But her aunt's response was always the same. "Life isn't easy, dear. Money is earned through hard work and sweat." Harriet would sigh deeply, her nights often filled with tears. One dreary week, Esme called with exciting news. "Harriet, don't forget it's my birthday next week. I've booked a room at a tourist lodge near the city for the weekend. You and Martha are invited, and I'm covering all the expenses. No excuses." Harriet hesitated, thinking of her work, but Esme insisted. "I know you have the weekend off. Come on, it'll be fun." Harriet couldn't resist her friend's invitation. This week she had 2 days off. So, on Saturday, early in the morning, 3 friends arrived at the holiday resort. They were greeted by the owner, a silver-haired man named Mr. Moore. "Good day. I booked a room with you for the weekend," said the birthday girl. "Yes, I remember. Esme, isn't it? Is that you?" the man asked. The girl nodded affirmatively. "Is our room ready?" she inquired. "Yes, of course. It's all yours. Let me show you where it is," said the owner, handing Esme the key. He glanced at all 3 visitors from head to toe. The girls didn't notice, but Harriet immediately recalled how the men in the cafe had stared at her, trying to look up her skirt. She felt uneasy and wanted to flee the resort without looking back, but she couldn't let her friend down. "Harriet, why are you staying like a statue? Come into the room. Wow, it's so spacious. 2 separate bedrooms and a big living room. We'll live like kings," Esme exclaimed. "We'll celebrate your birthday in style. We've ordered so many delicious treats. Esme, wait till you see the surprise we have for you. You'll be amazed," Martha chimed in. Around noon, the feast began. "And what's this? Look what I have," Esme said, pulling out 3 bottles of wine from her bag. "Oh, no, I don't drink, you know that," Harriet immediately objected. "Of course we know. You get the non-alcoholic champagne, our little one," the girls laughed. Laughter, music, dancing, chatting, and the clinking of glasses filled the air until evening. It was dark when Esme and Martha began to feel drowsy, likely from the wine. "Girls, I'm going to lie down for a bit, then we'll clean up," said a tipsy Esme. "Me too," Martha slurred, rising unsteadily from the table. "Harriet, what about you? Joining us?" "Yes, I'm tired too. I'll just take a shower and also go to sleep," Harriet replied. She hadn't drunk any alcohol, but was accustomed to going to bed early after a long day. Harriet entered the shower room and started washing her hands with soap. Suddenly she froze in astonishment, hearing a knock at the door. "Esme, is that you? Martha?" Harriet called out. Silence. "Who's there?" she asked anxiously. "Mr. Moore, the owner," came the reply. Harriet's blood ran cold. She feared he would burst into the room, but she found the strength to shout, "Leave immediately! I'll scream and wake the girls." "I just need to talk to you, that's all. Please come out," he said. Harriet hesitated, but unlocked the door and opened it. Mr. Moore stepped forward and she cried out, "Don't come near me! Don't you dare touch me! Esme! Martha, help!" "I'm not coming near you, and I won't touch you. Your friends are sleeping like logs. Don't strain your voice. I come with good intentions," Mr. Moore said calmly. "Why are you barging into our room whenever you please?" Harriet said angrily. "I apologise for scaring you. I didn't know how else to speak with you alone. You never leave your friend's side. Just give me a little of your time, please," the man said, looking at her kindly. "All right, fine," Harriet replied uncertainly. "Come to my office. It will be more comfortable to talk there, because I have a business proposal for you." Mr. Moore tried to interest her. As soon as the man entered the office, he got straight to the point. Harriet was, to put it mildly, surprised. She hadn't expected such a proposal. "I have an adult son. He's 30 years old and not well. 10 years ago, he was beaten in a drunken brawl and lost the ability to walk. I've taken him to countless clinics, both domestic and foreign, but the answer is always the same. It's a difficult case. We've done all we can. Time will tell." Time passed, but there was little progress. His greatest achievement is managing a few steps with crutches to the bathroom. Each step is a struggle, and then his legs weaken and give out. I want you to be his caregiver. I will pay generously for your work. Money is not an issue. I am a successful businessman. I own 2 large commercial firms, and the resort is just a hobby and diversification. As soon as Mr. Moore finished his monologue, Harriet hastily replied, "But I don't want to be your son's caregiver. Why me? Doesn't he have a mother or any other relatives?" "You are serious, don't drink and seem very responsible. His mother passed away not long before the tragic accident. I do have another partner, but she is quite spoiled, partly by me. She would never agree to be a caregiver or supervisor of the caregiver. Do you work or study?" "I work all day," Harriet replied. "How much do you earn? I will pay you 3 times as much. Don't rush to refuse. Your duties will be simple: cooking, cleaning, administering medication, and conversing with him. In other words, caring for a sick person. You can also live here. Room and board will be provided. Everything will be official. I will sign a 1-year contract with you, and then you can decide whether to stay longer. And I choose you because I see your kind and serious eyes." Caring for the sick. Harriet knew this all too well. She had wanted to heal people, but her dream was shattered by her family's indifference. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course, but not for too long. I need your decision by tomorrow evening before you leave. Good night." However, Harriet's night was far from peaceful. She tossed and turned, unable to decide what to do. It was only in the early morning that she found her resolve. If I think about it, what do I have to lose by staying here? A job at a diner? That wasn't her dream. A foster family. Her uncle and his wife didn't particularly want her around. So what's left? Nothing. After a sleepless night, Harriet knew exactly what to tell Mr. Moore. She couldn't help but share the news with Esme and Martha. Still recovering from the previous night's festivities, they struggled to comprehend what Harriet was saying. "Harriet, have you lost your mind? Are you joking? It's not funny, pulling pranks this early in the morning," Esme grumbled. "Have you fallen for him or something? He's old enough to be your father," Martha exclaimed. "No, girls, I've just decided to work here. Stable housing, good pay, fresh country air. What more could I ask for?" "We didn't expect this from you," Esme and Martha said almost in unison. "I didn't expect it from myself either," Harriet echoed. As the time for departure approached, Harriet confidently made her way to her future employer's house. "Well, young lady, have you made up your mind?" Mr. Moore greeted her warmly. "I've thought about it and decided to accept your offer." "I just need to pick up a few things from home," Harriet replied. "Excellent choice. I'll see you back here in 2 days. By the way, my son Cameron prefers the peaceful countryside to the city's hustle and bustle. I'll introduce you to him when you return," Mr. Moore said joyfully. Back home, no one batted an eye as Harriet packed her belongings. "One less mouth to feed," her uncle's wife muttered, rubbing her hands together. Harriet was even more convinced that she was making the right decision. She turned the doorknob and walked out without looking back, as if closing the door on her past. The road led her back to the resort. Who would have thought that one visit would lead to staying here forever? She mused as she signed the contract Mr. Moore had prepared. "You know your duties, and when Cameron calls you must go to him. Now it's time to meet your charge," the man announced. They approached a large 2-story house with a luxurious terrace, surrounded by a neat lawn and a sea of flowers. The interior was just as beautiful as the exterior. On a couch, amidst a pile of pillows, lay an unshaven man with a smug expression. "Cameron, this is the girl I told you about. Please be kind to her. You promised to behave," Mr. Moore declared. The man glanced at Harriet, wrinkled his nose and turned away. His cold reception left her bewildered. "Don't worry, everything will be fine," Mr. Moore reassured her, his tone suddenly sombre. "He's not very welcoming, but given his situation, it's understandable. During the week, my driver will bring supplies and check on him, and I'll be here on the weekends. Come, let me show you your room." As soon as Mr. Moore left the room, a walkie-talkie in Harriet's pocket crackled to life. "What are you doing there? Did you come here to relax? Get to work. Now, march over to me," a harsh voice commanded. Within a minute, Harriet was at Cameron's side. "I'm ready to start my duties. Is there anything you need?" she asked. "Starting, are you? I've seen plenty like you. What are you staring at? Think you're special? Ha! My father brought me dozens like you. You won't last long here," Cameron sneered. Harriet's hope for a better life shattered instantly. Here, just like in the city, she faced rudeness and indifference. "Make me something to eat. Quickly, I'm starving," Cameron smirked. "Why are you still here? Get moving." Harriet hurried downstairs. Less than half an hour later, the walkie-talkie blared again. "Are you coming or what? It shouldn't take all day," Cameron snapped. "I've prepared everything and am on my way," Harriet replied. Entering the room, she found Cameron still scowling. She handed him the plate, and he began to eat noisily, deliberately spilling food onto his clothes. "What is this? It's disgusting. I can't eat it," he taunted. "Everyone who knows me says I'm a good cook," Harriet retorted. "They're all liars. And wash this shirt. Bring me another. Ironed one." "Do you expect me to sit here in a dirty shirt?" Cameron demanded. "All right, I'll do it," Harriet replied, knowing he was mocking her. From that moment, her torment began. Cameron was relentlessly cruel, constantly berating and scolding her. Harriet did everything she could to please him, but the more she worked, the more he taunted her. She spent her days cooking, cleaning, doing laundry and even tending to the flowers outside, yet Cameron found fault with everything. After one of her cleaning sessions, he waved his finger in her face. "What's this?" he said accusingly. "What do you mean?" Harriet replied, confused. "Dust! Look at my finger, it's filthy! You clean terribly. I'm breathing in this filth, you're ruining my lungs," he sneered. Even the flowers, which bloomed beautifully under her care, were not good enough. Cameron insisted she was ruining the garden. Harriet felt hurt and frustrated, knowing she was doing her best, but Cameron, out of boredom, continued to torment her. She was his amusement, his toy, and she endured it all out of a sense of responsibility. However, this morning marked the end of her patience. Cameron often suffered from insomnia and would wake her at any hour. At 3 a.m, the walkie-talkie crackled again. "Are you sleeping? Get up, I'm hungry." Harriet obediently brought him breakfast. Cameron grimaced and muttered, "I have to eat your awful cooking again, but what can I do? My stomach demands it." Suddenly, he pushed the tray aside and ordered, "Dance. Shake those hips. Bread and circuses. Come on, start." He clapped his hands. "What? You know, I'm fed up. How dare you treat me like this?" "You lazy, shameless scoundrel. I won't be your slave," Harriet shouted, trembling with anger as she stormed out of the room. "I'm leaving for the city right now. I'll work as a janitor if I have to, just to get away from here. Thank goodness Mr. Moore is coming today. Let him deal with his precious son." 2 hours later, the owner of the resort arrived, and Harriet hurried to meet him. "How are you, Harriet?" he asked cheerfully. "I'm leaving today and never coming back. I can't tolerate the insults and disrespect from your son. I don't deserve this treatment," she shouted, her emotions overwhelming her. "But we have a 1-year contract," was all Mr. Moore could say. He knew what his son was like. "Contract? You should have warned me about your son's behaviour before. I'll tear this paper to shreds. If you don't pay me, it's on your conscience," Harriet retorted, rushing towards the door. "Wait, don't go. I'll talk to him," Mr. Moore pleaded. But Harriet shook her head and resolutely walked towards the house. As she stepped inside, she heard a strange crash coming from Cameron's room, like the sound of a falling crutch. She rushed in and managed to catch him just before he hit the floor. "Thank you," Cameron said. I didn't know he could say such words. This is the first time he's shown any gratitude towards me, Harriet thought. Leaning on her arm, Cameron struggled to make it to the couch. "Leave me alone," he said dejectedly. Harriet went to her room and saw a missed call from Esme on her phone. "How are you, friend? It's been a while since we talked," Esme said when Harriet called her back. "Not good. You were right, Esme, when you said I shouldn't stay here. I'm leaving today," Harriet replied sadly. "Wait a couple of hours. I'll come pick you up by car. Deal?" "Yes, thank you, dear," Harriet said. "It's all over," Harriet sighed, thinking about her failed job as she began packing her things. Suddenly she realised that it was past lunchtime and Cameron hadn't called her. The walkie-talkie had been silent all day, but then she heard a strange sound coming from Cameron's room. Harriet jumped up and rushed in. Cameron was lying on the couch, stirring a murky liquid in a glass with a spoon. Her eyes fell on a crumpled packet on the floor. It was the powerful powder she gave him in tiny doses, as prescribed by the doctor. In large amounts it could be fatal. "Why are you here?" the man asked. "Cameron, what are you doing? You could die! Your heart won't handle it!" Harriet exclaimed in fear. "Why should I live? I'm a disabled cripple. Today I couldn't even make it to the bathroom, though yesterday I managed with difficulty. What about tomorrow? I'll turn into a vegetable. No, I don't want this life," he said, resolutely raising the glass to his lips. "Cameron, leave half for me," Harriet said softly. "What?" Cameron gasped in surprise. His hand weakened, and the contents of the glass spilled onto the floor. Harriet rushed to him and took his hand. "Listen, Cameron, you're not a hopeless case. Even the doctors confirm it. I know you'll walk again. But pills alone won't cure your legs. They're just an aid. You need daily physical exercise to strengthen your arm and leg muscles. Let's ask Mr. Moore to buy special exercise equipment, and we'll train gradually, without overdoing it. And walk. Every day we need to walk. Today to the bathroom. Tomorrow to the door. The day after, to the hallway, and we'll learn to go down the stairs. You can do it. Will you try?" "All right. Just promise me you won't leave," Cameron pleaded. "Yes, I promise," Harriet replied firmly. Cameron smiled, perhaps for the first time since they met. "Oh, it's almost 2 in the afternoon. You haven't had lunch yet. And of course, you haven't taken your pills. I made soup this morning. Would you like some?" Harriet asked, as if nothing extraordinary between them had happened. "Yes, it's wonderful," Cameron exclaimed. "Really? You said it was awful," Harriet said, surprised. "I was lying shamelessly. It's wonderful. Like everything you do. I'm sorry. I'm very ashamed of my behaviour. My mind was clouded by my condition. I didn't understand what I was doing. I wasn't always like this. Will you forgive me?" Cameron asked. Harriet nodded, and Cameron tightly grasped her hand, unwilling to let go. Mr. Moore was overjoyed to learn of his son's transformation. "I'm so glad I chose this girl as his caretaker," he repeated to himself. After consulting doctors, special exercise equipment was purchased, and one of the rooms was converted into a gym. Initially, the daily workouts, though brief, exhausted Cameron. He grew anxious and nearly gave up several times, but with Harriet's support and his own determination, he persisted. Months passed, and one Sunday, Mr. Moore was astonished to see Cameron slowly but independently descend the stairs to the courtyard. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he realized his son was gradually returning to a normal life. He invited Harriet to speak with him. "Dear Harriet, my child, I am so grateful for what you've done for my son. I have the means and want to fulfill any dream of yours. Just tell me what it is," Mr. Moore offered. Harriet was taken aback and blushing. "Come on, speak up. When will you have another chance like this?" I want to study at a medical school. I was accepted there, but it was too expensive, and I had to drop out. That's the problem," Harriet replied regretfully. "Consider your problem solved. I will pay for your education. You will make an excellent doctor, and you can live with us while you study," Mr. Moore proposed. "Of course, with us!" Cameron shouted. He had made his way to Mr. Moore's house on crutches. Everyone laughed, joyfully and carefree. Harriet realized how beautiful life could be when filled with kindness, care and love. Dreams do come true. You just have to believe in them. Mr. Moore kept his promise, ensuring that Harriet had everything she needed to succeed. He watched with pride as she grew into a confident and skilled young woman, knowing that his investment in her future was one of the best decisions he had ever made. Meanwhile, Cameron continued his own journey of recovery and growth. With Harriet by his side, he found the strength to overcome his challenges and rebuild his life. Their bond deepened with each passing day, and it became clear that their connection was more than just friendship. It was love. As Harriet neared the end of her studies, she and Cameron realized that they could not imagine a future without each other. Their love had blossomed like a beautiful flower, nurtured by the care and support they had shown one another. And so, surrounded by their loved ones, Harriet and Cameron took the next step in their journey together and were married in a joyous ceremony that celebrated their love and the bright future that lay ahead. In the end, Harriet's dream of becoming a doctor came true, and she found not only a career, but also a loving family and a partner who cherished her. Their love story was a testament to the power of perseverance, kindness, and the belief that dreams can come true. Together, they faced the world with hope in their hearts and love in their eyes, knowing that their journey had only just begun.